also joining us at this point. Meghna, it was an Israeli filmmaker who called the movie vulgar and inappropriate. However, when it comes to the Israeli envoys, they are coming out in the support of the movie.
Absolutely, because let's not forget the context that Israel had originated. It, after all, was a land which was carved out for the Jews who were persecuted by the Aryan race, that of the Germans. The Nazis specifically had tortured them, butchered them, and at a time when a movie like Schindler's List was out, many have pointed out that that too was denied by many people who were in denial of the Jewish Holocaust. And now many have said that an Israeli filmmaker, being so insensitive to the plight of the Kashmiri Hindus who themselves were persecuted, hounded from their own hearth and heath, is rather unexpected, which is why perhaps a strong condemning letter is coming out from the envoy himself. In fact, we have this tweet in which he has also given out the open letter. Naor Gilon has said, an open letter to Nadav Lapid following his criticism of the Kashmir Files. It's not in Hebrew because I wanted our Indian brothers and sisters to be able to understand. It is all relatively long, so I'll give you a bottom line first. You should be ashamed, and here's why. He then puts out the entire open letter. I'm going to read out parts of it. In Indian culture, they say that a guest is like God. You have abused the worst way the Indian invitation to chair the panel of judges at IFFI, as well as the trust, respect and warm hospitality that they have bestowed upon you. Our Indian friends brought in order to try and celebrate the love in India towards Fauda and Israel. I suspect that this is maybe also one of the reasons why they invited you as an Israeli and me as an ambassador of Israel. I understand your need in retrospect to justify your behavior, but I can't understand why you told one of the publications afterwards that the minister and I said on stage that there is similarity between our countries because we fight a similar enemy and reside in a bad neighborhood. We did speak about the similarities and closeness between our countries. The minister spoke about his visits to Israel. It is being a high-tech nation and the potential of combining this with the film industry. I spoke about the film that we grew up watching, Indian films. I also said that we should be humble when India, with such a great film culture, is consuming Israeli content such as Fauda. I am no film expert, but I do know that it is an insensitive and presumptuous to speak about historic events before deeply studying them.
So that is the Israeli envoy who is completely taking a different point of view. In fact, giving out a piece of his mind and commenting, saying that as far as your personal comments are concerned, do not take it out as a frustration on a one particular country. Just keep it to yourself. Meghna, thanks very much for the update. Let's quickly go introduce our guests also with a panel joining us, Mr. Sushil Pandit and also Mr. Majid Hydari. Mr. Majid Hydari, what is so obscene, vulgar, inappropriate and propaganda about the movie Kashmir Files?
Well, Madam, Satyam eva jayate. The true pain of Kashmir Pandit had sold out of fakery, and now the picture is crystal clear that it was a propaganda and it aimed at creating a discord between the Hindus and the Muslims. Today, it's the victory of our communal ethos. It's the victory of Hindu-Muslim bhaitara.
So you're saying the genocide never happened?
I beg to differ with you on this. I said the true pain of Kashmir Pandit.
No, I'm just saying what the movie portrays. Hindu genocide, Kashmiri Pandits, they were removed from their own house, forced to leave their house, their state. You're saying that never happened?
Been endorsed by the international film community, not one person. It's the institutional filmmaking.
No, this is like a small, it's a minuscule kind of attempt that has been made to actually portray what the trauma and the struggle that they went through this movie. The large part of it is still being suffered for the last 3 decades. You're saying it never happened?
Madam, it's not an attempt. Vivek Agnihotri had brought embarrassment to our entire nation, 1.3 billion people.
By directing the movie? By directing the movie that actually talks about 7 lakh Kashmiri Hindu community, how they were ousted from their own homes.
Truth. It's half truth. I've been saying since day one, it's half truth. It has not only abused Hindu-Muslim brotherhood, it has also abused Jammu and Kashmir police. And now Jammu and Kashmir police must file a case against Vivek Agnihotri for this atrocious, sinister movie which has
so you need actually an Israeli filmmaker to back your claims, but you will not talk about the Israeli diplomat who is completely sidelined from those comments. Sushil Pandit ji, what do you have to say on it? Because when it comes to the terminology and the words that have been used by Nadav Lapid, obscene, vulgar, the words used by the characters to describe the Israel's position on Palestine in the films made by him, so it is not surprising that he has used the words from his own films to deny a Hindu Holocaust, sir.
Yes, of course. The truth, unfortunately, was so naked, so frightening, so granular, that those who are in the habit of dressing it up in more, palatable hues, those who are more used to embroidery and beautifying and doctoring, will never be able to stomach such ghastly and horrendous experiences that Kashmiri Hindus had to suffer in Kashmir at the hands of their own neighbors. Now, this indeed is extremely vulgar. But what do we do if the truth is so vulgar? Should we dress it up? Should we make it more palatable? Should we sprinkle some nice perfume on it so that it doesn't stink for how it is? Now, that is what Mr. Lapid was trying to do. Now, being a Jew doesn't mean that whatever he says on any Holocaust is true. Even Hitler found some Jews to manage the Jews who were driven to gas chambers. They were called court Jews. So we've had all kinds of people. My problem is that we don't do the right background check. And then we wallow in self-pity as to what has been done to us.
So, sir, wasn't then a background check also then necessary, as far as this was a government platform that was being given to at this international film festival that was being organized, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and under which...
government platform and government hospitality be given to someone with a history of virtue signaling?
Right, but we'll also talk about those people, sir, who are connected with the film. They have refused to directly engage with the Israeli director's criticism. Now, while director Vivek Agnihotri has also put up a cricket tweet, Pradeep, you can come in on this, saying that truth is the most dangerous thing. It can make people lie. This is on the same lines, Pradeep, that Anupam Kher had also tweeted on the same, who played a very significant role in the movie. Pradeep, you can also come in.
See, if we talk about the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, everybody knows that truth had been the first casualty. Why I say the truth had been first casualty? Because everybody tried to hide the truth, and truth was that they never wanted to expose Kashmir, Islamist radicals who were responsible for their exodus, how Pak-sponsored terrorists killed them, how because of them they are living in home away from home. People like Majid Hydari will keep on saying Satyamev Jayate, but he never ever had guts as a journalist to speak about the truth. And the reality was that Kashmiri Pandits have suffered. And your silence, that criminal silence, had been more dangerous than gun violence, Mr. Hydari. But unfortunately, as a journalist, you never had guts to give that side of the story. And today, here you have got the guts to speak and say, Satyamev Jayate, shame on you, Majid Hydari. You should not have done that. Because I had been covering these stories for the last several decades. And I have seen that how this community has suffered. I have met Mohan Lal, who was the lone survivor of Nadi Marg. But you will not talk about that man. And you will keep on speaking and beating chest for people like Yasin Malik, who had been responsible for killing, death and destruction. And last time they came for Kashmiri Pandits, tomorrow they will come for you. Even journalists are being targeted. But you will not speak because you are the part of that propagandist lobby. Stop being part of that propagandist lobby. Today, because as an Indian, I feel pain when somebody uses our hospitality and that podium to speak against India, trying to glorify those terrorists.
I'm sure he has to give an answer on this. How will you justify your stand now, Mr. Hydari?
Well, madam, firstly, it's not a Jew who has spoken, it's not a Hindu who has spoken, it's not a Muslim who has spoken, it's the institution of filmmaking, the international.
That gives you the validation. That gives you the validation to speak on Kashmir Files and the genocide that has been happening for 3 decades. You will back on him, but what happens with your fellow brothers, you will not talk about them. You need a validation from an Israeli filmmaker.
Not be at the cost of vulgarity, be it from Vivek Agnihotri or from Pradeep Datta or from anybody else.
No, is your problem with Vivek Agnihotri, or you have a problem with the movie and the truth that it tries to portray? What is the exact problem that you have with the filmmaker or with the movie?
No FIR was filed against this movie, even by Jammu and Kashmir police. This movie has even abused Jammu and Kashmir police's integrity. How come did Jammu and Kashmir police
Sir, the very same film was welcomed by an Israeli diplomat when the film released in April, 28th of April this year in Israel. Should I show you those pictures? We have the diplomat who has been speaking to Times Now, and he has been welcoming the movie and the characters. He said that he was moved to tears. But when he saw the movie, it was very difficult for him to see. This is also an Israeli diplomat speaking.
Madam, as an Indian, I am pained today because the Indian
now you remember
cinema
you are
has
an Indian.
given
First you were banking on an Israeli filmmaker.
So now today,
Majid, I want to say one thing. There is a saying in Urdu. Majid, there is a saying in Urdu.
How come his movie of vulgarity has brought disrepute to my nation? I am an Indian. Ye desh pe hai. Desh ki baat hai. It's about nation.
Majid, by raising your voice, if you think that you are going to change the reality, that's not going to change. कहते हैं उर्दू में जो चुप रहे वो है जुबान खंजर, और यही खंजर है जो हमारे पीठ में पिछले कई दिनों से खुद चुरा घोंप रहा है. यही खंजर है, और यही खंजर आप मारते रहे. एज ए जर्नलिस्ट यू हैव फेल्ड, एज ए कश्मीरी यू हैव फेल्ड, एज ए सिविल सोसाइटी मेंबर you have failed. You never ever raised your voice. Even today you are not speaking truth. In the heart of hearts you know what exactly happened with this community. But
so let's talk about another Kashmiri who has been very vocal on this, has played a significant part in the movie there, Pradeep. We are talking about Anupam Kher, because he has come out and his tweet was very forthcoming. He put out pictures from the Kashmir genocide along with the pictures of Holocaust against Jews, and saying that however you may lie, it will ultimately be dwarfed by the truth. Listen in.
We'll give the proper reply to it. अगर Holocaust सही है तो कश्मीरी पंडितों का एक्सोडस भी सही है. ये एक प्री प्लान मुझे लगता है, मैं जितना ज़्यादा जानता नहीं, ऐसा प्री प्लान लगता है कि प्लानिंग किया गया है, बिकॉज उसके बाद इमीडिएटली टूल किट गैंग जो है वो सक्रिय हो गया. इट्स शेमफुल फॉर हिम टू मेक ए स्टेटमेंट लाइक दिस.
Sushil Pandit ji, there is a differing point of view, not just from the jury head, which was Nadav Lapid, but when it comes to he giving that last comment during the closing ceremony, he said all of us in the jury. But it seems that all of us in the jury were not agreeing to his comment. Shuprito Sen was also a part of the jury. He said we do not agree with the comments made by Nadav Lapid.
What it amounts to saying is that Sarla Bhatt was not gang raped and her mutilated body was never thrown on the thoroughfares of Habakadal. What it means is that Girija Tikku was never gang raped and then, when alive, cut into two halves on a chainsaw. What it means is that Prana Ganju was not mutilated and thrown into River Jhelum. What it means is that 4 lakh plus Hindus of Kashmir were not brutalized and cleansed in a genocidal campaign against them from Kashmir. It whitewashes the entire episode that happened 32 years ago, in which our neighbors like Majid Haidri were complicit. And they were beneficiaries of our exodus. They walked into our homes. They took away our shops and businesses, our lands. They are the ones who harbored them, fed them, pointed us out to them, and made them butcher us. So today, I'm not surprised that the likes of Majid Haidri justify them and deny our genocide. This is par for the course for the entire Kashmiri society, and Majid Haidri is a very good specimen representing them. I hope you give him more time so that he exposes the venom he carries about Kashmiri Hindus and the way he represents the larger Kashmiri Muslim society about antagonism about us, which is why they prevent us from coming back. Which is why they prevent.
We cannot give a stage to propaganda here, no, Mr. Pandit. Mr. Haidri, one last time I'm asking you, what is exactly the problem with the movie? That it showcases the truth, what happened as far as the Kashmiri Hindu genocide is concerned, or you have a particular problem with Mr. Vivek Agnihotri? What is the exact problem, sir?
Madam, I have never ever denied the pain of Kashmiri Pandits. I always stand by them and I have been supporting their cause. But the point is this...
Do you admit that there is a genocide that happened in the 1990s, 30 years later, and the Hindu community is still suffering?
See, it's not about a masala movie.
No, it is not a masala movie. I'm talking about the actual pain and the sufferings and the trauma of the Hindu community that they had to face, sir.
Their pain is sacred, but this movie is only condemnable. This was
movie is just a minuscule part of what their pain has been portrayed, sir.
No, it's not a documentary. It's a masala movie, a commercial movie, a typical commercial movie sold for hatred, for which Vivek Agnihotri minted fortune, got a bungalow in Warsaw, got properties elsewhere. It was not for the Kashmiri Pandits. It was a typical masala movie, and why are we supporting movie instead of the cause of Kashmiri Pandits. Let's say, what has BJP done for Kashmiri
But you are
Pandits
supporting a filmmaker who made the comments. You are supporting the comments. You are actually, your entire point of view of the argument that you are putting forth is the calling out for validation of what the Israeli filmmaker called about.
It was not the filmmaker, it was the institution speaking against one dirty movie.
He himself has now been singled out. He himself has now been singled out. There is a complaint that has now been filed against him. His fellow jury members are not siding with him. The Israeli envoy is not siding with him. There are other Israeli diplomats who have called out and said that he should be ashamed of himself. Now what?
It doesn't matter now. Tir kaman se chal chuka hai. You go for any damage control, but the damage has been done.
Damage control, Pradeep, I think is something what Nadav Lapid needs to do. Why was he even made part of a jury like this and to make such sort of a comment during the closing ceremony?
See, after listening to Majid Hadri, that so far as that cover of that Kashmiriyat completely gets exposed. There is no Kashmiriyat. There is only Shariat in Kashmir, and that's one thing that they wanted to hide, and they never wanted ever the world to know about that. And that's why Majid Hadri is right now crying horse. The second question is when he says that it was Agnihotri who made fortune out of film and he didn't give anything to Kashmiri Pandits. I want to tell him Kashmiri Pandits are not beggars, because you can't insult this community by saying that he did not give. They never ever asked for anything. All they wanted that their truth to be told. And here was a man who told the truth, and you don't have the guts to see that movie because you are so diplomatic in your approach, and even today you are trying to maintain that criminal silence. And unfortunate thing is that as a journalist you should not have done. The same way the jury member should have been neutral, not a motivated one. Same way as a journalist you should have spoken out and stood for the Kashmiri Pandits, tried to give that reality.
And the validation that Majid Hadri is seeking from Majid Hadri, this is another Israeli diplomat, sir, we are talking about. He had welcomed the movie and the cast when they were in Israel, when the movie got released in the country. He goes on to say that when I saw the movie, tears came from my eyes. It was not an easy film to see. I think it was shown in Israel too. We are Jews who have suffered from horrible things, and I think we have to share other suffering as well.